I thought I feared losing my job, my health, maybe even old friends. But no, the worst thing a man can hear is his own son walk up to him and ask, "Dad, what's this movie with Mom in it?" The flash drive was red, plastic, harmless looking. Liam held it between his fingers like a sticker he found under the couch. He had no idea what was inside. Why would he? "It was in Mom's bag," he said with a shrug. "Is it a cartoon?" That's the moment everything went quiet. I was sitting at the dining table with a cup of coffee, scrolling through some weekend sale email I didn't care about. The living room buzzed with lazy Sunday energy. Cartoons still playing low in the background, cereal bowl on the rug, sunlight slanting in through the blinds. Ordinary life. Until that drive hit the table. I took it from him without a word, plugged it into the laptop, expecting what? Tax files? Work presentations? Old vacation photos? There were just folders, unnamed, labeled with dates. One was from last month. I clicked, and then I saw it. The video started in silence. Shaky, handheld footage. A hotel room, beige walls, soft lighting. The camera focused on a bed. Then Harper appeared, wearing a dress I didn't recognize. Her hair done up, her expression unreadable. She wasn't alone. Another figure stepped into view. A man, his face mostly out of frame, but his hand. I saw where it landed, where it stayed. My body locked up. For a second, I couldn't even close the video, couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Then Liam leaned closer. "Is this the wrong file?" he asked. I reached for the keyboard. Fast. Slammed the spacebar. Froze the frame. Yanked the USB drive out like it was burning me. The screen went black. Liam blinked at me. It looked weird. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The room felt colder now. My heart was thudding so hard I could hear it over the cartoon, still humming from the TV. I kept my eyes on the laptop screen even though it was blank, like maybe staring at nothing would help. Liam had already moved on. Back to the carpet, where a pile of Lego bricks waited to be turned into a spaceship. But I couldn't move. Not yet. That single video, that one frozen image burned into my mind, had just split my world down the middle. And the worst part? My son brought it to me. I don't remember standing up, but I was already moving. The flash drive was still clenched in my hand, tighter than I meant to, and I could feel the plastic edges digging into my palm. But all I could think was, "Don't let him see your face." "Not a cartoon," I said, forcing the words out like they were nothing. Liam looked up from the carpet. He had that curious tilt to his head, the same one he had when he couldn't tell if I was joking or serious. "Oh," he said, "like one of those work videos Mom makes?" I nodded too quickly. "Yeah, something boring like that." My voice cracked just slightly. I hoped he didn't catch it. He turned back to his toys without another word, content again in the world of plastic bricks and exploding space battles. Like none of it mattered. Like he hadn't just handed me a wrecking ball. I stood in the middle of the room for a long second. My legs weren't steady. My thoughts were scattered, crashing into each other too fast to make sense. But I knew one thing. He couldn't know. Not what I'd seen. Not what it meant. Not yet. I crossed the room slowly, knelt down beside him, and wrapped an arm around his back. He leaned into me the way he always did. Warm, instinctive, trusting. "You okay, Dad?" he asked. I almost lost it. "Yeah," I whispered, "just a little tired." He nodded like that was enough. Like that explained everything. I stayed there for a while. Let him talk about his spaceship, and the villain he was building from spare Lego arms. I nodded when I had to. Smiled when I could. But inside? Inside I was burning. My pulse hadn't slowed since the video. My mouth was dry. And every time I blinked I saw her, standing in that hotel room, looking at someone else the way she used to look at me. I didn't know who he was. I didn't even care. Not yet. What really carved something deep into me was how normal everything around me still looked. The apartment. The morning. My son's voice. Like life hadn't just torn open. But it had, and I was already bleeding. Just not where anyone could see it. I stood up slowly, ruffled Liam's hair, and told him I'd be in the kitchen. He gave me a thumbs up, too distracted by his Lego army to notice the way my hand shook when I grabbed the edge of the table on my way out. I placed the flash drive on the counter like it was radioactive, stared at it for a long time. I wanted to throw it, smash it, burn it, but instead, I stood there frozen. Because now that I'd seen it, nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. That night, we had spaghetti, the kind Harper made when she didn't want to think too much. Quick, familiar, comfort food, the kind we'd eaten 100 times before, usually with the TV playing in the background and Liam telling us everything he learned at school that day. But that evening, everything was quieter, more precise. The plates clinked a little louder, the faucet dripped a little slower, and Harper, well, she was exactly the same. At least, she acted like she was. She poured Liam a glass of milk, wiped a drop off his chin when he got too excited telling a story about some paper volcano they made in science class. She laughed in all the right places, smiled at me once or twice, asked how my day was, and I smiled back, chewed slowly, nodded when I had to. But the truth was, I didn't hear a single word, because everything she said now had weight. Every syllable felt double-sided, like it might flip over and reveal something underneath if I stared long enough. She said, I had a busy morning. And I thought, was that before or after the hotel room? She said, there was a weird traffic jam near Westbrook. And I wondered, is that where he lives? Even her laughter felt careful, like it was measured to avoid suspicion. I kept my fork moving, pretended not to notice the way her hand trembled just a little when she reached for the Parmesan. She didn't usually use that much. Tonight she poured it like she needed a distraction. Liam didn't pick up on anything. Why would he? He was too busy turning his spaghetti into a worm monster and asking if we could go to the zoo next weekend. Harper said we'd see. She glanced at me when she said it. Just a second too long. Like she wasn't sure what version of me she'd get tonight. I held her gaze, didn't blink, didn't smile, just nodded once and took another bite. Inside, I was 1,000 miles from that table. The flash drive was still sitting on the counter in the other room. I hadn't touched it since the morning, but I couldn't stop seeing it. That grainy footage. The way she moved. The way she didn't hesitate. She passed me the salad tongs, and I almost dropped them. My hands were cold, too cold. I wiped them on my napkin and told her the food was great. She smiled again. A little slower this time. I knew that smile. It was the one she used when she was bluffing. Poker night with friends. Parents' visits. Moments when she had something to hide and didn't want anyone to notice. I noticed. For the first time in our marriage, I was looking at my wife like a stranger, like a puzzle, like a woman I didn't know, and wasn't sure I ever really did. She was eating her spaghetti, asking about school schedules, talking about something Liam had spilled on the carpet last week. But I was only thinking one thing, how long has she been lying to me like this? I lay there in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator down the hall, and the soft breathing of my wife beside me. I could tell she wasn't fully asleep. Her breathing was too steady, too practiced. I wasn't asleep either. Not even close. I stared at the ceiling like it had answers written across it. My mind kept circling the same spot, like a fly stuck in a window, slamming into the same glass over and over again. The flash drive was still on the kitchen counter, still red, still small, still the same thing that had blown a hole in my life 12 hours earlier. I waited. I let time pass. 20 minutes, maybe 30, I don't know. Then I slipped out of bed without a sound. Harper didn't move. I padded down the hall, past the photos of us at the beach, the framed drawing Liam made in kindergarten, the birthday card still taped to the fridge. All of it suddenly felt like set dressing. A fake stage for a play I didn't realize I'd never been cast in properly. The laptop glowed as it woke. The screen asked for a password, but my fingers typed it automatically. I didn't hesitate this time. I plugged in the drive. There were more folders than I remembered. Some dated back months. I clicked through one, then another. I shouldn't have. I know that now. But something in me needed to see. The second video was another hotel room. Different setting. Same setup. Same camera angle. Same woman. Harper. I sat there, jaw clenched so hard it ached. The image flickered in the pale glow of the screen. She walked into the frame like she was arriving for something she looked forward to, like a person entering a room they'd been in before and missed. She laughed at something off camera, then crossed the room slowly. Her body language was familiar, too familiar. She touched the man's shoulder, said something I couldn't hear. I couldn't watch it. I scrubbed forward. Another hotel, another day, another version of the same scene. It wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some one-time lapse, some drunk moment of weakness. This was a routine. It was planned. My chest tightened. I backed out of the folder, hands shaking. And that's when I saw it. A file named only with her initials. HW_MSG. _4 inches. It was a video. Shorter than the others. I clicked it. The screen flickered again. This time, there was no man. Just Harper, sitting on the edge of a hotel bed. No makeup. Hair pulled back. Wearing a hoodie I thought was mine. She held the camera herself. And then she smiled. "Hey," she said softly. "If you're watching this, it means you found the flash drive before I deleted it." She looked down for a second, then back at the lens. "I was going to clear it after this weekend, but I guess I waited too long." I didn't breathe. She sighed. That little half laugh she used when she felt awkward. I know it's stupid to say this into a camera, but I guess I needed to mark it somehow. It felt different this time. More than just fun. I don't know what we are, but I know I don't feel guilty the way I probably should. She paused, blinked. Her expression flickered between nerves and something that made my stomach twist. Hope. This isn't just some fling. I want you to know that. She leaned forward slightly, lowering her voice. When I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself. Not the mom, not the wife, just Harper. Silence. Then she smiled again. Smaller this time. Sadder. I don't know what happens next, but I'm not going to lie anymore. Not to myself. The screen went dark. I sat there for a long time. The silence of the kitchen pressing in on all sides. I could hear the slow tick of the wall clock. The heater kicking on. But none of it registered. I felt like I was watching the story of someone else's marriage unravel in front of me. I'd seen enough to be angry. To be destroyed. But this was personal. She wasn't just cheating. She was confessing. Not to me. To him. She made a video to someone else. Sat down on a bed and told another man, in the quiet, in her own voice, that she felt more alive with him than she did with me. With her own son waiting at home. With our photo framed above the fireplace. And I hadn't even known she felt lost to begin with. What kind of fool lives beside a woman for years and misses the moment she vanishes? I closed the laptop gently, pulled the drive free. My hand trembled just slightly. She'd gone to sleep tonight like nothing was wrong. Like there wasn't a second life tucked inside a flash drive a few feet away from the cereal boxes. Back in the hallway, I paused outside the bedroom door. My hand rested on the doorknob. I didn't go in. I walked past. Sat on the couch in the dark. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel confused. I felt alone. I called out sick the next morning. Didn't tell Harper until we were already packing Liam's things into the trunk. She came out in her robe, still half asleep, squinting against the daylight. "Where are you going?" "To my parents," I said, not looking at her. "Liam hasn't seen them in a while." There was a pause. I could feel it more than hear it. "You didn't mention anything." I shrugged, still checking the back seat. "I'm mentioning it now." She crossed her arms over her chest, fingers tucked under her elbows like she was trying to keep the wind out, or maybe just hold herself together. "I have that dinner with the Clarksons tonight," she said. "You know, for the foundation board." I nodded like I was listening, but I wasn't. "Not really. Just for the weekend," I said. "We'll be back Sunday." Liam climbed into the car, already asking if Grandma would make pancakes. Harper leaned toward him, kissed the top of his head. "Be good, okay?" He grinned. "Always am." She looked at me again before I got in the driver's seat. Her eyes searched mine like she was trying to read a sentence that had suddenly gone blurry. "You okay?" she asked. I gave her a soft smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't stop me. She didn't push. Maybe she knew better. Maybe she was relieved. I pulled out of the driveway without looking back. The road to my parents' place always felt longer than it was. Flat, two-lane highways, slow-moving traffic. That one faded sign for the orchard that closed years ago. Liam talked the whole way. About dinosaurs, baseball cards, a new friend at school who could sort of burp the alphabet. I nodded, answered where I could. But mostly I drove. I kept one hand steady on the wheel, and the other resting on the gear shift, like it might anchor me to something real. I wasn't running. Not yet. But I was retreating. Because I needed a place where no one looked at me with questions in their eyes. A place where I could stop pretending for 5 minutes that everything was fine. My parents were surprised to see us. Of course they were. But they opened the door with smiles, not suspicion. Dad clapped me on the back. Mom kissed my cheek twice. Liam ran straight to the old toy chest in the living room, like it had been waiting for him all year. We settled in like we used to. Like I was just their son again, not a man whose marriage was quietly bleeding out in the background. That night, after Liam fell asleep in the guest room, I sat outside with my father on the back porch. Didn't say much. Just passed the bottle back and forth, listening to the wind sift through the pine trees behind the shed. He glanced over at one point. "You look like a guy who's been chewing on a rock all day." I let out a dry laugh. "Something like that. Harper okay?" The question landed heavier than it should have. I stared out across the yard, watching the moonlight catch on the rusted lawn chairs we never threw away. "She's fine," I said eventually. "I just needed some air." He nodded slowly, like he'd been there once. Maybe he had. Dad never pried. He wasn't that kind of man. He believed in silence the way some people believed in prayer. If you gave it long enough, it answered more than it asked. I didn't tell him. Not about the flash drive. Not about the videos. Not about the slow-motion collapse happening back home. I just drank the whiskey he poured, and let the quiet hold me up. Later, in the guest room, I watched Liam sleep for a long time. He was curled up on his side, one arm draped across his stuffed bear, the same one he'd had since he was 3. He looked so peaceful it hurt. I sat there on the edge of the bed, hands clasped tight between my knees, and tried to breathe. This was why I left. Not to punish Harper. Not to buy time. But to protect him. Because I knew the next chapter wasn't going to be clean. And once it started, once I said the words out loud, nothing would ever feel this still again. I hadn't made any decisions yet. I hadn't drawn up plans or booked appointments. But I was starting to see the edges of things, the way a crack on the wall keeps growing even when you try not to look at it. I leaned down and pulled the blanket a little higher over Liam's shoulder. He stirred just slightly, then sank back into sleep. I wanted to keep him here forever. Away from what I'd seen. Away from what was coming. Away from her. Sunday morning was cool and gray. My parents had taken Liam to the farmer's market downtown, said he needed some fresh air and maybe a donut the size of his face. I said I'd catch up later. But I had somewhere else I needed to be first. Mason lived 15 minutes away, on the edge of a quiet street that used to flood every spring until the town finally fixed the drains. We'd known each other since college, the kind of friendship that never asked for permission to go deep. He was calm, steady, the guy you called when you didn't know what to do. He also happened to be a child psychologist. "Coffee's fresh," he said, sliding a mug toward me at his kitchen island. "Unless you've started drinking your pain blacker than usual." I managed to smile. "Depends how strong you made it." He took a seat across from me, elbows on the counter. He didn't ask how I was. Didn't need to. I think he knew from the moment I called the night before. There was a long pause between us, comfortable but loaded. Then I said it. "I need to ask you something. Not as a friend. As someone who works with kids." His brow lifted just a bit. "All right. If a child is happy, really happy, but there's something big and ugly happening behind the scenes, do you tell them? Or do you wait, even if it might blow up later?" He sat back slowly, his hands folding over each other. "You talking theoretical," he said. "Or is this a real-life explosion waiting to happen?" I looked down at the rim of my cup. "Let's just say the timer's already ticking." He nodded, thought for a moment. "It depends. How close is the blast?" I didn't answer right away. He leaned forward. "Kids are resilient, but they're not built to process betrayal. Especially when it involves the people who are supposed to make the world safe. You drop something like that too early. It won't just hurt. It'll reshape how they see everything." I swallowed. Hard. "So you lie to them?" He shook his head. "No. But sometimes. You wait. You build the walls first, then tell them about the fire. Otherwise, they're standing in the flames with nothing to protect them." I let the words settle. They didn't give me peace, but they gave me pause. "You ever see a case," I asked, "where telling the truth too early ruined something?" Mason didn't blink. "More than I can count." He looked at me, not as a doctor, not even as a friend, but just as a man who'd seen things break. "Is he asking questions?" "Not yet," I said quietly. "But he brought me the truth, without even knowing it." Mason's expression didn't change, but I saw the understanding flash across his eyes. "He doesn't know what he gave you, does he?" "No," I whispered. "He just thought it was a cartoon." We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves rustled against the window. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, long and lonely. "You're angry," he said eventually. I nodded. "More than I've ever been in my life." "But you're still thinking about protecting her." I looked up. "What makes you say that?" "Because if you weren't," Mason said gently, "you wouldn't be asking what Liam needs. You'd be burning the house down." I exhaled. It felt like I'd been holding that breath for days. "I don't want to lie to him," I said. "You won't," he replied. You'll just tell him the truth when he's ready to carry it. Back at my parents' house, Liam was sitting cross-legged on the porch, gnawing on what was left of a powdered donut. His face was a mess of sugar and crumbs. He waved the second he saw me. "Dad! Grandma let me buy a tiny pumpkin. It's not even Halloween." I smiled. It wasn't forced. I walked over, ruffled his hair and sat beside him on the steps. He leaned his head on my arm without a word. Just sat there, sticky and warm, like the world hadn't cracked open yet. I looked out at the trees and thought about what Mason said. I wanted to protect Liam from everything. From betrayal. From bitterness. From the kind of doubt that poisons a boy too early. But mostly, from me. From what I was becoming just by knowing what I knew. So for now, I stayed quiet. Not because I was weak, but because the truth has weight. And I wasn't about to let it crush my son, just to make myself feel lighter. We got back a day early. Didn't call, didn't text, just drove. The house looked exactly the same when we pulled in, curtains still drawn the way Harper liked them. Porch lights still broken, but something about the stillness in the air felt different, like the house had been holding its breath while we were gone. Liam ran inside first, dragging his little suitcase across the hardwood. I followed, slower. Harper was in the kitchen. She spun around fast when the door opened. Too fast. "Hey," she said, voice pitched a little too high. "You're back?" I nodded, setting my keys down on the table. "Thought you weren't coming until tomorrow." "Plans changed," I said evenly. "Figured we'd beat the traffic." She smiled, but it didn't land. And then I saw it. Her hand, slipping something off the counter behind her. Quick. Subtle. A phone. She tucked it into her back pocket like I wouldn't notice. But I did. Everything in that moment slowed down. Her blinking. The way she adjusted her hair. The hesitation in her breath before she asked, "Did you guys have fun?" I watched her. Not what she said, but how she said it. Liam answered from the living room. Something about pancakes and pumpkins. I didn't say much. Just leaned against the wall and watched her keep talking. Too much. Too fast. She hadn't expected me to walk through that door. And for the first time, I could see the panic she was trying to hide. I wasn't looking for answers when I opened that old folder of shared family photos. I was just trying to distract myself. Click through something normal. Something harmless. But there it was. One frame. One photo from a wedding 2 summers ago. Harper, smiling too brightly in a coral dress. My cousin Trevor, standing a little too close beside her. His hand on her waist. I don't know why I zoomed in. Maybe because I'd seen that hand before. That shape. That angle. In the video. In the hotel room. I stared at the screen for a full minute before the truth clicked into place. And once it did, I couldn't unsee it. It wasn't a stranger. It was Trevor. My cousin. My blood. I leaned back from the desk like something had hit me in the chest. The room spun for a second. My pulse kicked up hard and fast. I stood, paced, sat back down, stood again. I didn't know whether to scream or laugh. I did neither. I just muttered his name. Trevor. Suddenly, everything made more sense, and hurt 10 times more. The secrecy. The emotion. The message she recorded. She hadn't fallen into something. She had chosen it. Chosen him. And he'd been coming to Christmas with that smile on his face, laughing at my jokes, playing with Liam, standing in my kitchen like he had every right to be there. He was family. And now I realized. Harper didn't just betray me. She made me the last to know in a room full of people who probably already suspected. I didn't call, I didn't text, I drove. Trevor lived in a newer part of town. Big houses with clean driveways and motion sensor lights that blinked even when the wind shifted. He opened the door with a grin that dropped the second he saw me. "Well, Caleb." He stepped aside like I'd been invited. I walked in. The house smelled like leather and cologne. He'd always been the type to overdo things. "I guess I should have expected this eventually," he said, motioning toward the living room. "Want a drink, or just here to punch me?" "I want the truth," I said. My voice sounded flat, even to me. He nodded, as if I'd passed some kind of test. "I didn't take anything she wasn't offering," he said casually. "If that's what you're here to hear." I clenched my jaw. "She's my wife." He tilted his head. "Yeah, but let's be honest, Caleb. You stopped being her everything a long time ago." Something in me snapped at that. Not loudly, not violently. Just quiet. Like ice cracking under your feet. "I trusted you," he shrugged. "That was your first mistake." I stepped closer. "You came into my house, ate at my table." He smiled, lazy. "And apparently, Did it better than you did. I saw red, but I didn't hit him. He wanted that. He wanted me to lose control so he could play the victim. He wanted to walk away from this with something to feel superior about. So instead, I straightened my shoulders and stepped back. You didn't just take her, I said. You took something from Liam. For a moment, just a flicker, his face changed. Guilt? Maybe. Or maybe just annoyance that I'd dragged a kid into it. Don't make this about your son, he said. This was never about him. It's always about him, I said. And if you knew anything about being a man, you'd understand that. He didn't reply, just turned, poured himself a drink with a hand that was too steady. I left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't slam the door. I just walked out of that house. I didn't sleep that night. The house was dark when I got back, just past 1 a.m. The street outside was still, the porch light still broken. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there for a while, gripping the steering wheel like I needed it to hold me together. Inside, everything looked the same. Of course it did. Her shoes were by the door, a jacket over the banister, one of Liam's drawings still pinned to the fridge with a magnet that said family first. That one made my stomach turn. She was in the kitchen when I stepped in. She'd left a light on. Probably for Liam. Maybe for me. But the second she heard the door, I saw her flinch. She was barefoot, in a sweater, mug in her hands, waiting. You're late, she said softly. I didn't answer. I walked past her, straight to the dining table, pulled the flash drive from my pocket, and set it down gently in the center of the wood. I didn't look at her. Didn't need to. I heard the shift in her breath. She knew exactly what it was. The silence stretched. She moved toward the table slowly, as if the flash drive might go off if she got too close. Her hand hovered near it, but she didn't touch it. Her voice cracked when she spoke. How long? I looked up. Not angry, not broken, just done. Long enough. Her eyes welled. She covered her mouth like that might stop what was happening. Don't, I said gently. Not right now. She nodded, tears falling quietly. We stood there, on opposite sides of the table. Same kitchen we'd eaten 1,000 meals in. Same walls. Same air. But we weren't the same. Not anymore. She reached for a chair, sat down slow, like her legs didn't want to hold her up. I didn't mean for it to become. She stopped, tried again. I didn't want to break anything. I sat across from her. It's already broken, I said. The only question left is what we do with the pieces. Her hands trembled. What about Liam? That was the first thing she said that felt real, and the only thing that mattered. I took a long breath, looked her in the eye. I haven't told him, and I won't. Not yet. She closed her eyes, a sob catching in her throat. But I need you to understand, I continued. This isn't just between us anymore. It never was. He's the one who found it, Harper. He handed it to me. Her whole body went still. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't know. No. You didn't think. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You were careful about everything. Except that. She wiped her face with the sleeve of her sweater. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't believe her, but because sorry doesn't mean much when it shows up after the damage is done. She looked up at me, desperate. What happens now? I don't know yet, I said. But I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to tear this house apart. Her lip quivered. You're leaving. I shook my head slowly. Not yet. She looked confused. I leaned forward slightly. We're going to keep Liam safe. That's the priority now. Whatever else happens, we do it without dragging him through the mud. She nodded, slowly, eyes down, words gone. I stood, took one last look at her. This woman I had once built a life around, now sitting in front of me like a stranger in my kitchen. Then I turned away, didn't take the flash drive, didn't say goodnight, just walked upstairs to check on my son because for now, that was all that made sense anymore. Time moved on, the way it always does. At first, it was days, slow, awkward, uneven. I'd wake before the sun and sit at the edge of the bed, just to feel something solid under my feet. Liam would stir in the other room, and I'd pull myself together, one quiet routine at a time. Then days turned into months. We never had a grand confrontation, no storm of plates or screaming, just long stretches of silence, broken by conversations about pickup times, school forms, and who forgot to buy milk. Harper and I existed like ghosts in the same house, two people orbiting around the only thing still holding gravity, our son. And eventually, the months became years. Liam grew. He got taller, quieter, stronger. I watched him become the kind of young man I could be proud of, kind without being soft, honest, without needing to be loud. I kept my promise to protect him, even when it meant swallowing things that burned on the way down. And Harper, she changed too, or maybe just faded. She tried. I'll give her that. She stayed to co-parent. She asked questions, showed up to school plays, smiled in photos. We built something fragile and decent out of the wreckage. Not love, not trust, but routine, familiarity, a version of peace. The betrayal became a shadow, always there but further away, something neither of us dared bring up. Like speaking it out loud might reopen the wounds we both had learned to walk around. Until this morning. The kitchen was quiet, warm. The coffee pot was still half full. I was sitting at the table, reading the same sentence of a newspaper for the third time. And then she walked in. Harper. She looked the same. A little older. A little softer. Hair pulled back, sweater sleeves pushed up. Her voice was gentle. The same way it had always been in the early mornings. Morning, she said with a small smile. I nodded. Morning. She moved toward the counter like any other day. Reached for a mug. Poured the coffee. Just another quiet ritual between two people who had long ago stopped calling themselves husband and wife, but never officially signed the dotted line. And then I said it. Liam knows. Her hand froze. The mug tilted, just slightly, but not enough to spill. She turned slowly, eyes searching mine. What? I told him, I said evenly. Everything. Color drained from her face, like someone had pulled the plug and let all the blood fall from her cheeks. Her lips parted. When? Last week, he asked. I wasn't going to lie anymore. Tears welled immediately. She set the mug down with shaking fingers. Caleb, I didn't tell him to punish you, I said. I told him because he's a man now, and he deserves to understand what shaped this house. She sat down across from me, didn't speak. The quiet between us wasn't like the silence of those early days after it happened. This silence was older, deeper, more final. I reached into the drawer beside me and pulled out a folder, placed it gently on the table. Divorce papers. Her eyes locked on them like they were something poisonous. She didn't touch them, didn't need to. Her tears came slowly, one after another. No sobs, no words, just the sound of her breathing growing thinner, and the slight tremble in her lower lip. I always wondered when it would come, she whispered. I nodded. You always knew it would. She reached out, fingertips brushing the edge of the folder, not to grab it, just to acknowledge it. This is the end of us, she said. No, I said softly. This is the end of Harper. Her eyes snapped to mine. I didn't mean it cruelly, I meant it clearly. The Harper I married, the Harper I trusted, she never came back after that flash drive. We lived side by side with something between us neither of us could ever name, but I had spent enough years pretending it didn't matter. Now, I was done pretending. She cried quietly. I didn't stop her. I stood, grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The morning air was cold, clean. The world felt still. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight in my chest. I didn't feel afraid. I felt free. And somewhere down the hall, my son, was awake, making coffee of his own. He knew the truth. And he still looked at me the same way. That was all I needed.